All right, 3.2 K-selected and R-selected species. So we're going to be distinguishing between these two groups, much like we just did with generalist and specialist. Examples here, elephant. We're going to talk about K-selected, R-selected, spider, for example. So our objectives, essential knowledge and skills, you can see identifying those differences. We're going to be doing some data analysis. K-selected, R-selected, I'll be talking about in slides. I want to point out here biotic potential, and that refers to the maximum reproductive rate of a population in ideal conditions. And that's really where the distinctions are made between these two groups of species. We are also going to be talking about how K-selected species are more adversely impacted by invasives than R-selected. And how R-selected species are much more adaptable. And many times invasive species are indeed R-selected. So what are these terms? So K-selected, I want you to think about quality. So their reproductive strategy is to have few offspring, tend to have high parental care, usually reproduce many times during the lifetime. Examples, birds, mammals, usually have a long lifespan, a long time before sexual maturity, usually a very low biotic potential and slow to grow, much more likely to be disrupted by environmental change, disturbances, invasive species. In comparison, R-selected means quantity. So think of quantity. Many offspring, little or no care, may reproduce only once during a lifetime. And examples would be things like fish, some fish species. Probably better would be examples would be insects, many plants like annual plants. Short lifespan, quick to sexual maturity, high biotic potential, very rapid population growth rates. More likely to be invasive than K-selected and better suited for rapidly changing environmental conditions. Here's some fun facts. K comes from a German word. I don't Zagrini. If you send me an email or send me a video of you pronouncing that word properly, I will give you extra credit. You heard it today. R-selected refers to maximum growth rate. So R refers to maximum. That's kind of where these terms come from. So K, carrying capacity. Remember that. And these are quality, so very few offspring. All right, so here's a graph table that shows distinctions between the two in terms of life expectancy, reproduction, time to maturity, number of offspring, size, parental care, and growth rate. So you can take a look at that. Think about our elephant again is K-selected, and an R-selected example here, dandelion. Realize that much like what we talked about generalist and specialist species, there is a spectrum. Some species are very high reproductive rates, like some plants produce lots of seeds, some don't. Things like oysters here can produce 500 million offspring a year with zero parental care. They're just broadcasting those out. And you can see there's a continuum here, fish, frogs, hare, large cat, and then we have a chimpanzee on the other end of the spectrum. Here's some rabbits. So there are exceptions, right, to the idea that all reproductive or all mammal species are K-selected. One could make an argument that rabbits, they can reproduce very quickly. And you can make an argument in many cases that they are more towards the R than the K, versus something like an amphibian here. This poison dart frog only has one or two offspring, and does a lot of parental care and carries them on their back, in fact. So remember that it's not, don't put them in the box unless you know. Okay, K-selected. So again, we talked about low biotic potential, and very hard for them to deal with disturbances. High parental care often means that there is a death. If there's a death of the parent, oftentimes there's a death of the offspring. Invasives can outcompete these K-selected species. Case in point, think of islands like Australia or many of the other Hawaii, where there are specialist species that oftentimes are K-selected species, and they're outcompeted by uh, rodents or other species that are able to make it there and reproduce faster, and have, usually it's a placental mammal versus a marsupial in the case of Australia. So K-selected, less likely to adapt. R-selected, high biotic potential, low parental care. Death of the parent doesn't usually affect them, not as impacted by invasives, more likely to be invasive themselves. They are also oftentimes that early successional species. We've talked about succession earlier, that produces lots of seed and can colonize a new area quite quickly. Because they have so many offspring and in such high rates, they can adapt much quicker and they are much less prone to extinction. All right, now it's your turn again. I'd like you to identify a characteristic of an R-selected species that could increase the likelihood of that species becoming more successful invasive species than a K-selected species. So what's a characteristic of R-selected species which would make it a good invasive species? And describe the biotic potential of one invasive species found in Wisconsin. So do some research, find an invasive species found in the state of Wisconsin. How many offspring do they have? How quickly can they reproduce under maximum conditions? All right, good luck. Okay, here's an example of an invasive. So this is the zebra mussel. It came up in an Edpuzzle prior Edpuzzle, and the story of the zebra mussel is it was able to get to the Midwest via ballast water. So big ships, when they come out to sea and they're empty, they fill up these tanks so they sit low in the water and they can cross safely. And when they arrive to port, and say if they come through the locks of the Great Lakes, they'll empty that water prior to loading up their cargo, say it's steel or coal. And then in that process, they release small either eggs or larvae of different invasive species. And that's kind of how that zebra mussel was able to get to the United States. And from there, it spread to other lakes. You can see that it is, we are receiving and giving in terms of invasives. The northern Pacific sea star, for example, is from Alaska and is able to and has colonized Australia. So invasives get around, and definitely need to monitor these ballast tanks and get better at making sure those invasives are not able to get to new places. Right. Now, I would like you to look at some data. You remember we talked about data analysis. Looking at this data of the native unionid mussel here, and the zebra mussel density, and this is density of number of individuals per meter squared in the Hudson River. So that is kind of at the mouth of the Great Lakes. Describe the relationship between zebra mussel and the unionid mussel population density in the Hudson River. So what is the relationship between zebra mussel and this native mussel? All right, last topic for today, the survivorship curves 3.3. We're going to be talking about 3 different types. So we're going to explain those curves. We're going to do some data analysis. You're going to be looking at some graphs today, explain the patterns and trends. And a survivorship curve is a line that represents the relative survival rates of a cohort, a group of individuals of the same age in a population from birth to the maximum age reached. We're going to be distinguished between 3 types, and they are, of course, different in K-selected and R-selected species, which we talked about earlier. So survivorship curve, you can see there's 3 examples. And again, it shows survival of a group, a cohort of a species, the same age species in a population from birth to death. The faster the line drops, the quicker the die-off for those individuals. And if the line is slow to drop, then obviously they're going to have a longer lifespan. So this is a typical graph that you're going to see. So the three types. Type 1, mostly these are K-selected species, like that whale, have a high survivorship early in life due to high parental care, high survivorship in midlife because of usually larger size or some sort of defensive behavior. They will, towards the end of their life, have a rapid decrease in survivorship. Examples are most mammals. The one in the middle have a steady decreasing survivorship through life, like those squirrels. So squirrels are, will have maybe, I think they're called pups, and they might have a dozen of those pups, and maybe within a month or so, a couple of them die because of predators or because of something, and then they reach, a couple, 6 months or 7 months, a couple of them die, and so on. Type 3, which are mainly the R-selected species, have a high mortality early in life because there's usually no parental care. Think of our fly example. Few make it to midlife, slow, steady decline in survivorship in midlife. Even fewer make it to adulthood. Examples, again, are those insects, fish, and plants. All right, FRQ practice. Here is a graph. Describe the trend in the survivorship shown in this graph, and I'd like you to justify which type of survivorship curve these data or this data represents. Good luck.